Okay, as ever, I'm Kevin and I'm the host of Fit2Thrive podcast. So we're here to help as many people get into a healthier and fitter lifestyle around the world. And if you like this podcast and you find it useful, just make sure you pass it on to someone else who you know that needs it. That's what we're all about, sharing the wealth of health. So happy 2022, everyone. This is my first one back. So if someone had told me at the start of this year we'd still be dealing with COVID, I would have not believed them. I've just spent 7 days isolating again after testing positive with no symptoms, and it's certainly knocked me back for a while. I'd had some big plans for my fitness and my jiu-jitsu training, which I just couldn't do. So life is like this, right? For many of us. It can't be enough, though, to derail our plans, especially at the start of the year. So this podcast is dedicated to you. Anyone that has made some new goals, finds that they're not working or they've fallen off track, don't worry, just pick yourself up, dust yourself off, refocus on your end point and go again. It's a good point to refocus after a few weeks anyway, as everyone is talking about goals in January and then it kind of just gets dropped and forgotten. So I'm here to be your cheerleader, cheerlead you through the rest of your journey and make sure you get what you want. So you've fallen over. You might have had a bad week, you found your goals might not be clear enough, or you've had doubts. It's cool. Let's get back on the bike. If you're not driving, just grab something to take notes with as well, as I'm going to ask you a few questions which I'm sure you'll find useful. So let's get into it. So using that falling off the bike analogy, okay, what's the first thing that we want to do when we fall off the bike? It's get back up. Okay, and there's sort of three things within that. The first one is just the initial shock of the pain, the confusion. Why has this happened? Ow, that hurt my ego. That's really hurt my kind of confidence. It's cool. It's just what happens. You fall off your bike, you hurt yourself. It's fine. It's not about judgment. It's not about beating yourself up. Just stand back up, accept the fact it's happened, take ownership for it. And then it's time to just reflect a little bit, not dwell, but just reflect a little bit on what happened and how we might be able to prevent that going forward. So let's have a quick look at reflection. Now, you might be naturally good at this. And if you've done this already in your previous goals, it might just be a case of just go, well, what happened this time? And you don't need to go back and look at the previous year and reflect. But if you haven't done that, if you've kind of done very vague goal setting, or you've just got a rough idea in your mind about what you want, that could be the reason why you are falling off the wagon, or you're not sure, or your confidence is low. So looking back sometimes, as long as you're not dwelling on it and beating yourself up in this sort of cyclical thought process, is a really good thing to do. And we should do this, like I'd say, once a week, once a month, maybe once a quarter and once a year, for brief periods, just to make sure we can celebrate what we've done as well and see the things that we've learned, how we can learn from the things that we've failed at, which is again what failure is all about. It's not about beating yourself up or losing. It's about learning and moving on. So let's have a quick look at this looking back. So writing these down, I've got a few things I want you to write down, and obviously you can then fill these in later. So I want you to write down 5 to 10 big wins from last year. So what were the 5 to 10 really big things that you were so chuffed about, that were what you'd class as big wins for 2021? Next one is write down what you're most proud of achieving or doing. So that might be, again, tied in with the big wins, but it might just be, I'm really pleased that, I got through lockdown and my kids were happy and confident and they weren't too affected by that. Whatever that might be, what are you proud of achieving and doing for 2021? And I want you to write down 5 lessons that you learned last year that you need to apply this year. And lastly, I want you to write down 5 things that made you most happy. Cool. That's it. Let's reflect on that. We can obviously learn from the mistakes, we can celebrate the wins, and we can take lessons from that year and we can bring them into the now and be able to utilize them now to create the future. So the next thing then, so we've reflected, we've got over the initial shock, we've stood up. Where are we now? So let's have a look at that. So we're going to go a little bit deeper than just health and fitness, because I want you to understand why these exercises are important, and why it's crucial, because basically all of these things I'm going to talk about, these different headings in a minute, are all going to have impact on other aspects of your life, okay? So what I want you to do now is I want you to write a list of headings, and I want you to leave some space, a decent amount of space under each heading, so then you can obviously infill those sections with your thoughts and ideas. Okay, so here are the headings I want you to write down. Number 1, health and fitness. Number 2, career and business. Number 3, family and friends. 4, romantic relationships. 5, personal development. 6, financial. 7, quality of life. And number 8, spiritual. Okay? So these are the headings that I want you to write down. And then what I want you to do with those headings then, and again, you don't have to do this now, I want you to sort of think about this in a bit more depth, is I want you to rate these headings from 1 to 10. So these are all different areas of your life that kind of create you as a human, okay? So I want you to rate each heading from 1 to 10, 1 being not happy at all, really sort of disappointed or really kind of this is a negative thing for you. And 10 is totally incredible. You're super happy with where you are in this area, okay? So for each of those headings, I want you to rate them from 1 to 10, and you can just obviously write that next to the heading. And then once you've done that, what I want you to do, and obviously pause the podcast if you're doing this currently, and you can obviously just pick up each time. So what I want you to do once you've done that is I then want you to write a few key words to why you've rated them from 1 to 10. So for example, if you've written romantic relationship, let's have a look at. If you've written a 3 for that, because that's something where you think you're struggling, then you might want to put keywords in for that. For example, time. You've not had enough time together. Or stress. When you do get home, the stress means that you're grumpy, or you kind of want to just stay away from people and isolate yourself. So I want you to think about a few keywords that can describe why you've actually written that in. And that's a good start. And then obviously from that, you can then write more in on those. You can actually just write as much as you want, almost like journaling. You can just kind of write underneath that the reasons why you think it is, and so on and so forth. So that's that section. So this kind of builds a picture then of where you're kind of, all these areas of life need to be balanced. So if you have, a very low personal development, for example, if you said that's a 1, but your health and fitness is really high, but then you feel like you're not moving forward, you're not learning, in time that will catch up, and you'll feel stressed that you're not learning and developing yourself as a person. And then you'll find that it impacts on the 10s or the 8s that are on that wheel, and they start to drag those down. So trying to find a balance in our life of all these things will give you happiness and contentment. And if you feel that, you're more likely to have obviously a positive mindset, be more productive and more successful in your life. So it's a really key, it's called like the wheel of life is the process. A really key way of sort of just getting a rough idea. Cool. So let's move on from that. Right. So let's have a look then. So that's us basically looking at where we are now in terms of those categories. So now we need to look where we want to go. Okay. So we've looked back, and what I want you to do now is I want you to, using those same headings, I want you to write a short description under those headings of what your vision for each of those headings are. Okay. So your ideal outcome for those. So for example, health and fitness is obviously what we look at. So when you think about health and fitness, I want you to really sort of close your eyes. I want you to visualize what that healthy and fit person is, but not just that, not just how you maybe visually look, but I want you to also look at what that means for your life as well. What is that vision? What does it impact in your life if you're a 10 for health and fitness? And again, I want you to write down a description so you've got an idea about, and you can do that for each of those sections. Write down a description about what the ideal 10 is for each of those headings. Cool. So once you've done that as well, can you then work out how you can divide your time better between all those areas to ensure that you obviously feel more complete and satisfied as a human being? So, if, for example, if your career is going great, but to the detriment of your health and romantic relationships, then something needs to change. Or are financial issues giving you stress, which then impacts the quality of time with your friends and staying fit? Or what are the actual values that make you you? So spend some time really getting clear on this, because if your vision don't align with your values, then you're going to always struggle anyway to kind of hit those targets and actually sort of really make those visions reality. And I'd recommend for sure spending a couple of hours each week, maybe a day a month, and then about a week a year. I do it in December, just before the new year, to really reflect on the previous year, what my values are, how I feel my life is balanced, and where I want to go for the next year and beyond. Having a really clear path is super important, okay? Cool. So let's move on from that. A couple of extra tools that you can think about. Another thing I really like is a dream list. So again, a lot of the time we might be on holiday and be like, oh, I would love to have a house, by the beach, or I'd love to do this, or I'd love to do that. I've always wanted to do that. And it happens in passing in life, and then it kind of goes away. And then you might do it, it might pop in another time and it goes away again. So what I want you to do is I want you to sit down, and it's quite hard to do this. I want you to try and write a list of 50 of your sort of bucket list, your dream kind of things that you want to do in your life. And I want you to write them down from 1 to 50. And take a bit of time to get it. Once you've done that, I want you to then try and prioritize those in order of how you'd like them to appear. And you can even, if you want to, kind of write a rough timeline, a realistic timeline. So, for example, if it's like, I want to go for a skydive, well, you could book that tomorrow. You could put that as a priority 1, and you could, say, well, I'm going to book that this week. But if it's a bigger one, like a holiday home or a nice car or fitness for yourself, whatever the dreams are, you can obviously prioritize those and give them a timeline. What that does is it puts them in front of you, and it almost becomes part of your goal setting process then, because actually your dream list is the things that probably stem from like your values and the things that you actually want. And then when you start to set goals, you can ask yourself, well, are the goals you're setting going to get you anything that's on that dream list? If not, then why are you setting those goals in the first place? Is it for someone else, other people's expectations? Is it because how you want people, to perceive you? So again, if you've got this dream list, again, try and think about things that you want, not necessarily, I want a really nice car because, I want my mates to think I'm successful. It needs to be things that you really want, because those things are going to make you happy. They're going to enrich your life, but not just your life. Are they going to enrich the lives of the people around you as well? So have a go at that. That's another really nice little tool. I enjoyed that one. And again, I just go through that dream list, and then I start to go, actually, this is what I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to have a fitness business, and I've always wanted to impact other people's health. Well, that's what I'm doing now. That's why I'm recording this podcast. That's part of my dream list. And the other thing, again, I spoke about briefly is this idea of journaling as well. So again, with those headings we talked about earlier, and with your dream list and what's happening in your day-to-day life, or lying in bed awake worrying about things, all of those things can also be helped by journaling, because it's about writing down thoughts. It's a great way to get things out of your head and put them into the real world. So it's proven to help with stress management, brainstorming, reducing anxiety. And you can do two things with it. You can either keep them as a way of reflecting and looking back at the past and going, wow, I can't believe, when I look back at my journal from 2 years ago, I said I wanted to do this and I've done it. Or, I haven't done that, but it's amazing how I've gone from that, and then it's sort of evolved into what I'm doing now, which I'm even happier with. And wow, I was so naive then. I really knew nothing about what I wanted to do, and look how much I've learned since then. So it's a brilliant way of looking back. But also sometimes people just want to write stuff down that they might be embarrassed about, worried about other people reading. They might say if you want to write things down because they're angry, and that's cool. Everyone gets angry. They might write nasty things down, or upsetting things, or things that they would never want to share with other people, and that's fine. You don't have to keep those things. You can literally write it, get it out on paper, tear it up into tiny little pieces, or shred it and get rid of it, or write it on a document, and you don't even have to read it back. Just delete the document afterwards. But it's really important just to get it out of your head onto paper, as a means of sort of organizing your life, making it feel real, and sort of relieving stress and anxiety. So again, another great tool I'd recommend having a go at. There's loads of info on the internet if you want to learn a bit more about it as well. Cool. So let's get into this again, this where we're going. So the sort of future. And a massive part of that, once you've got this vision, the reasons why you want to do something and what you kind of want from your life, we have to then make sort of specific goals. Now, you might have a large vision, but if you just have a large vision, it's quite a daunting thing to actually kind of then go, oh, that's what I'm going to do. But you might be so far from that vision. Actually, that's terrifying and you don't really know how to get there. So again, if this is something that you're good at, you obviously just skip this section. This podcast is definitely aimed more for people that are less experienced in terms of goal setting, their own fitness and what they want. So let's have a look at that. So for example, let's say someone goes, I've always wanted to run a marathon. Now, if the thought of that might be terrifying, or if they're not terrified by it, but they actually just go, right, I'm going to go and run a marathon because they're a little bit naive about actually what that takes to do, they're going to go out and probably end up, maybe they'll finish it, maybe they won't finish it. If they don't finish it, they're going to be disappointed. If they do finish it, it'll be super uncomfortable, painful, they'll suffer, and they probably won't really want to do that activity again. They probably will then go, well, running, I didn't enjoy. So making some goals and breaking that down and realizing what's going to actually be needed to go into those goals is super important. And setting, like I talked about before, setting yearly goals, quarterly goals, monthly goals and weekly goals, as well as that's like your planning process, is really important. And in the industry we call that like macro and micro cycles, but it's, we don't need that jargon. It's basically just setting regular goals, breaking the larger goals down into bite-sized chunks. And one of the tools we can use to do that is what we call this sort of SMART principle. SMART, SMART. So S stands for specific. And what it means is, what do you actually want to achieve? So you need to consider who, what, where, when, why, and how. And you need to make it specific in terms of not like I want to lose weight, but I want to lose this much weight. And actually, what sort of weight are we talking about that we want to lose? Because you can lose weight in water, you can lose weight in fat, you can lose weight in muscle, you can sort of retain water and things, depending if you're female, depending on sort of the hormones that are happening at that time of the month, for example. Or there's loads and loads of different reasons and different types of ways that you're going to lose weight and how you track that. So you've got to be specific. Now, if you're not sure, so if you know that you've got excess body fat, for example, you might say, I want to lose body fat. Now that's become more specific, which is great. But the other thing as well is, obviously, you might not know how to actually know that, and that's where you can just obviously ask for a qualified person to give you a bit more advice on it. Obviously, that's something we offer, but it's also something that loads of PTs, nutritionists, nutritional therapists, dietitians, sports coaches around the world have knowledge in. Go and do some research, go and speak to someone, find someone that can help you with that. So the first one is specific. Then we need M is for measurable. So how will your goal be measured, and what are the criteria for the goal completion? So for example, again, if we go back to, obviously in January, a lot of people think about weight loss. So if we go back to that sort of idea, so how are we going to measure that? So if we say we want to lose body fat, for example, well, then we need to measure that body fat. Otherwise, how will we know that we're going to lose it? Now, of course, you could take a picture of yourself, and then you could obviously take a picture of yourself weeks, months later, and you can see the progress anyway naturally. But also you could be losing some muscle as well, and you'd see a reduction in the size of your body. So how are we going to measure that, and what specific measurement do we actually want to lose? So do we want to lose 10% body fat, for example, and we're going to measure it with a bioimpedance machine or using a pinch test? There's loads of different ways. Again, I'm not going to dwell on that for now. A professional can help you with that. But you need to know what you want to lose and how you are going to measure it. Cool. Nextly, A is for achievable. So is the goal actually achievable? Now, I don't mean that in the sense of, what you've set, what you're thinking right now is not achievable. It's not that. It's more a case of the effort that's required, the time it takes, the costs that are required for achieving your goal all need to be considered. So, for example, if you say, I want to lose, 20% body fat by tomorrow afternoon, then that is not an achievable target and you're setting yourself up for fail. If you say, I want to, learn how to fly a plane, but you have no financial I want to learn this year how to fly a plane, but you're financially able to pay for those lessons, then is that goal achievable, or is it going to be more difficult to achieve? You need to consider these things when you're setting these SMART goals. R is relevant. So is the goal relevant to your lifestyle and your fitness needs? Okay. So again, is this something that is actually aligned with your values, with your vision? Is this something that you can reasonably expect to be able to achieve if it isn't? So is it relevant to what you want to do to your visions? Because there's no point just having a goal that actually is kind of disjointed and doesn't align with everything else. Otherwise, again, is it likely for you to be able to actually achieve that if you're not motivated to do so? And lastly, the T stands for timely. So what is the time frame the goal should be completed in? What is the target completion date, for example? Can it be broken down into smaller goals to make it less daunting? A bit like what I spoke about in terms of these macro and micro cycles. So weekly goals, monthly goals, quarterly goals, yearly goals. So set a time frame. A deadline is always good. Now, it might provide some stress having a deadline, but having an open-ended goal that has no deadline is very rare that people achieve that, because again, sometimes you need that little bit of pressure on yourself. You need a deadline. Most people work to a deadline in the sense that they wait, and then the deadline comes and then they panic and do it. But again, that's why we have these weekly, monthly goals to say excuse me, in a year's time, I want to run a marathon. Well, I know that each week I need to build up my distance by this month. I need to go to the gym and work on these specific strength training exercises to help. I need to stretch to make sure that the muscles that I'm going to be overusing in terms of running are going to be loose and my mobility is right. And I need to think about my, footwear and costs of all that kind of stuff. So all this stuff is broken down into these time frame goals. So that is our SMART principle. If you're using that already, amazing. If you're not, start to think about how you can tweak your goals. You've already got these goals, which is great. But if you can tweak them and make them more specific and make the whole system more robust, more accurate, it's only going to help you. And this is something I use with my clients and have done for a long time. And it is definitely a proven, effective way of doing it. A lot of people, shy away from measurement because they don't actually necessarily want to know the truth. But really, it's important to know where you are. It's important to know how you're progressing, and it's important to know when you get there so you can actually celebrate the success, right? If it's just I want to be fit, for example, well, how do you know when you get to fitness? What does fitness even mean? How are you measuring fitness? It's super important to use this sort of principle and make sure that you actually get where you want to go. Cool. Another thing also, just try and be part of a community. Sometimes just doing it by yourself is really difficult. A lot of people feel alone in this. Oh, am I the only one that thinks this way? Am I the only one that's on a diet for 2022 and they've already stopped doing it, or had a bad day where they ate too much? Absolutely not. You are not alone. And the beauty of being part of a community, accountability is a great one. Obviously, if you put it out there and tell everyone what your goals are and what you're planning to do, then there's some sort of social pressure for you to at least stick to that. But also, it's about support. A community is about support. So when you're struggling, realizing actually I'm not alone. I'm not struggling with my sort of mental health today because I feel unmotivated. There are other people doing that because you're a human just like everyone else. And there are other people that can then cheerlead you and encourage you. You can ask people with more experience questions. They might ask you questions. Everyone can learn from someone else. You might not be that you can give an answer right now on, I know how to lose weight, but you can also say, well, I know full well that I've tried 5 times in my life and every time I've done this and it's failed, so maybe that's something to avoid. That's giving someone some information that they can learn from too. So community is really good. And again, we offer those kind of communities. We've got two groups, two private groups. One is free, which gives general support, and people are in there, and we chuck a couple of classes and lots of really interesting information in there. And that's like a support group for people trying to lose weight and just be fit in general. And we've also got our subscription service, £10 a month, where basically you get 10 classes a week. You get sort of daily tips. You get to ask direct questions to the coaches, and they can obviously give you more bespoke sort of individual feedback. They're both options for you. Again, just email info@fit2thrive.co.uk if you want to join those, or you can also go on our website, fit2thrive.co.uk. Feel free to take part in the free one. I'm usually on there each day anyway, just putting tips and hints, and so are the other coaches. Basically, we want to empower you by showing you the best way to stay fit and healthy. So it's not about selling you products. It's not about, take this, buy this expensive bit of kit. For us, we want to, our sort of values, our vision is to be able to make fitness and health information available to everyone, okay? It's about giving people knowledge and empowering them to be able to help themselves. Knowledge is potential power. And if we add consistent action, then basically that is going to achieve goals. So your potential really is where you set the bar for yourself. And that is what we want to do, is make you realize that it's actually not as difficult as you realize. You don't need to buy this expensive equipment to get fit. You don't have to pay for this expensive diet plan or this equipment to measure ketones or whatever it might be. There are simple ways of doing it. The main thing is you have to stick to that plan once you have it. If you've got a good plan, you have to take ownership for it, and you have to see it through. And that's what we're about, is empowering people to understand that and to help them. So lastly, we've made these plans. We've done this goal setting. The only thing we want to do is put in place is now is just to be a bit of a realist. Again, we're human. We're going to have bad days. We're going to have temptations. There's times when we're going to have doubt or feel our motivation isn't there. So can we put things in place, safety mechanisms, let's call them? Can we put those in place to make sure that you possibly then don't stop? Or if you do, you can get back on it much faster. So make a plan for what you might consider your weaknesses. So for example, my weakness is chocolate, so I try not to have chocolate in the house, because if I see a bar of chocolate, I'm going to be more tempted to eat it, right? Now, there's nothing wrong with eating chocolate, but again, if you eat too much chocolate, if you've got a sweet tooth like me, a large Toblerone can go in a few hours, then you need to have plans to stop those barriers. So if you've got barriers that might stop you doing well and progressing in your goals, think about what those are and make a little plan to ensure that is minimized as much as possible. Okay, so for example, if it's motivation, or time, for example, is a really good one. Make sure you prep ahead of time, right? So if your plan is I want to go to the gym before work, which means I have to get to the gym at 7:30 and I have to leave by 8:30 to get to work by 9. If you just get out of bed and then have to do everything to prep for your day, is it likely that you're going to actually get to the gym? Probably not, and it'll be a justifiable excuse. Oh, I didn't go because in the end I woke up and then I had started to do my own stuff to get ready, so I never made it. But if you pack your gym bag the night before, you make your lunch, for example, for work the night before and have a snack, and you have your coffee cup on the table with coffee in it, ready just to add hot water, and your car keys are ready. Everything is in place for you to succeed. All you need to do is get out of bed, brush your teeth, get your gym bag, go do your workout, have a shower at the gym, and you'll be at work in time. And think about how good you will feel with yourself when you get to work and you've done that. So having that plan, having that sort of little safety net is going to stop you sort of then falling off and then going, oh, I didn't manage it this today, and then I didn't manage it again. Or maybe just going to the gym before work is just not for me. I'm not a morning person. No, prep, be planned, be organized ahead of time. Give yourself a better chance to succeed. Cool. Anyway, that's enough of me talking. So it's time to start pedaling, right? So don't wait. Don't go, I'm going to start Monday. If you've dropped off, get this done tonight. Think about what you're going to do. Make your plans specific if they're not already. Think about your visions, journal some thoughts, and then start tomorrow morning. get straight back on it, be positive, stay motivated. Obviously, we're here. Ask us if you've got any questions. I'm happy to help on any of the social media platforms or via email, and give us some feedback. And again, share this podcast if you find it useful. If you think that you know someone else that might want to have these tools, this information, and please share the wealth. Cool. Have a great day, and I'll be back soon. Take care. Bye, guys.